I'm going to do a quick demonstration of this effect, but it really is an interactive trick. So me sat here doing it really isn't going to do it justice because it very much involves audience members and a bit of participation. I did do a performance of this on YouTube with a very weird presentation, which I will include a link to on this page so you can watch what it looks like live. But here's just a quick run through. You explain to the spectator that you're going to have the cards mixed up but in the weirdest way possible. You're going to have a load of them face up, face down. You're going to get them to hold the cards like this and drop them on the table. And you're going to do a process of elimination, getting rid of all of the face-up cards. So in this case, these are out the game, these are out the game, this one's out the game. So then, oh, there was another cheeky six of clubs just hanging around for the fun. So we'll take more of these and put these face-up too. That is great. And you would get the spectator, or maybe a different spectator if you got a group to do this next bit. The exact same thing again. Loads of cards face up. Jack of clubs, two of clubs, they're out of the game. These guys, out of the game. Four of diamonds, no one wants you here. Two of spades, we don't love you anymore. All right, get rid of those. And we are getting there, I think, a couple more times. We really want like 4 or 5 cards ideally left. So they will do it again. Oh, some of the cards fell off the table. We'll count those as losers. They are out the game. Get rid of these, get rid of these. I think we can do this maybe, we'll do it one more time. And then I think we'll be good. Here we go. Lovely stuff. Right, how are we doing? I think that's probably going to be it. I think we've got enough. So we'll keep you, get rid of you, get rid of you, get rid of you, keep you, get rid of you, get rid of you, keep you, get rid of you, and I think that is it. We'll just use a few more now. Now this is normally where the spectator will make some choices, but me making choices isn't going to feel very fair, so unfortunately you're just going to have to accept that. So we'll put these cards here and we can maybe mix them up, or it doesn't really matter. Now the spectator would eliminate cards, so I'll normally number them. I will normally number them 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'll have the spectator name odds or evens. We'll just take out one of these cards to represent their choice. So odds or evens, and they had evens, so that's 2 and 4. So this is a big moment. I get the spectator to point to any card they like. Let's say they point to this one. I would then ask the spectator if this is the card that they want to keep or if they want to get rid of it. And in this case, they say they want to keep it, so we get rid of the final couple of cards. We've eliminated all of the cards. We've had some chaos. And we've narrowed it down to just the King of Diamonds. Now, I don't know if you realise, but over here, underneath the little cactus, we have a red-backed card, a prediction, and that card is the King of Diamonds. This routine is directly inspired by a force in Card College called the Mishmash Force. That involves a procedure that's pretty much identical to the one that I did in the performance, but it involves a double facer. So that every time this card lands face up, it's always going to be face up, which means the audience can do whatever they like with the cards, and you're always going to have this as the face up card. Now, I really like the procedure for this trick because I quite like how elaborate, it's a bit chaotic, dropping the cards. I really like the procedure that comes up to having the card chosen. Works really nicely as a prediction effect, but I wasn't a massive fan of the method. And that's simply because having a double facer as the method is the very thing that the audience might think is the method if they think it through for a while. Like, there's not much in the way of layering the method here. The method is a double face card, and they're essentially flipping cards, so I think it's not a big stretch for the audience to think, well, what if that card has 2 faces? Saying that, I do think that the method in Card College is effective, but I thought it would be good to take this one step further and eliminate the only possible explanation while still using that explanation, or that method I should say, but in a bit of a different way. You will not need a double facer for this trick. In fact, all you will need is a normal deck of cards as well as a duplicate card of the card that you're going to force, in this case the King of Diamonds. You will also need the secret ingredient, which is a repositionable glue pen, also known as a restickable glue pen. It's basically the type of glue that you get on post-it notes so that you can apply it and it creates like a sticky feeling, but then you can peel apart whatever you've applied it to and restick it to something else and it still retains that stickiness. You're simply going to take the repositionable glue and dot it in 4 corners of the card. You can actually also honestly just do this with 2 corners, but you know, for me, I use 4 corners. So I'm going to dot basically exactly where the king is, the K is, a little dot like that, and then we'll do a little dot over there, a little dot here, and a little dot here. I'd recommend that you play around a bit with the amount of glue to apply. I've only done 4 very small dots, but you might want to use a bit more, you might want to use a bit less. It all sort of depends, and different amounts of glue will achieve slightly different results. Once that's dry, you're going to take that card and its duplicate and put them face to face together, make sure they're nicely squared, and press down lightly on each of the corners. So I mentioned that you're going to want to experiment with this a little bit. You might want to push down a bit harder. You might want to push down barely anything at all. But you want to get it to a point where this double card handles and can be dropped from quite a height and thrown around a bit without risk of those cards splitting. Because if those cards split, you're in a really bad spot for this routine. As you can see, that's pretty good. But you also want it that it's not so firmly pressed together that when you peel the cards apart, it doesn't make a click noise. If you push it a lot, I don't know if we have enough glue to do this, but just as a little example, if you push it a lot, then you get that unsticking noise, which you do not want. So do experiment with the amount of glue and how hard you want to push down on those corners. The final thing that you're going to do is that you're going to mark this card on both sides. So we're just going to use a pencil, and I'm going to do a little dot on each of the 4 corners, like this. This would actually be a bit easier to rest on a table than a close-up mat. There we go. And on the other side as well. Once again, it's personal preference how you want to dot that card, whether you want the dots to be pretty clear or quite subtle, but you just need it to be marked so that you can easily identify it when it's amongst the other cards. Now, I'm sure at this point, a lot of you watching this will have jumped ahead and pretty much know the method going forward. However, I am going to go over it because there are some small subtleties that I think are important at making this trick work. So firstly, you're going to have your card somewhere in the deck. You basically don't want it to be on top, so put that somewhere in the middle. And you're going to take some of the cards and put them face up like this, and some of them face down like this, so that you're already giving the cards a bit of a pre-mix. Make sure that the kind of mixing procedure that you're doing here doesn't involve riffles or farrows, because it will pry apart the card. You want it to be quite a gentle shuffling procedure. And the reason that we're mixing the cards, even though the spectator is about to drop them on the table, is that sometimes the cards will sort of land a bit like that, or they won't actually get very mixed when they do this process. So by having the cards face up, face down already, it ensures that they look very mixed every time the spectator does the little hand rubbing action. You don't have to have the card exactly in the middle, you just basically don't want it on top or on the bottom, as I feel like those are the most vulnerable positions where the cards have the most chance of prying apart during the dropping action. You're going to explain to the spectator what to do, and you do a little bit of a demonstration, and then you basically guide them through the process of doing this dropping action. Make sure that they're not going from a huge height, mainly because the cards can just go everywhere. You want it from about here, and then get them to do that little rubbing action. The cards will drop. Hopefully none of them will hit the floor. If they do, I normally just go, they're out of the game, unless the force card is amongst them. So now this is one of those things where it's kind of obvious what to do. You're going to separate the cards and say that you're going to get rid of all of the face-up cards. That's because your force card is now effectively a double backer. But the way that you do this procedure has to be very light, because if you scoop the cards and square them together, you have a risk of a card going in between that double and splitting it apart. So it is a very light process. And whilst you're doing this, you want to ideally locate where the card is as quickly as you can, because if you can see it and grab it, there it is, then you don't have to worry so much about how you're handling the rest of the cards, and you can be a bit quicker with this process. But basically you're going to separate into 2 piles and get rid of the face-up cards. You're now going to do the same thing again. Take some of the cards and stick them so that they're face up, do a little bit of a shuffle like that, but make sure that your force card is not on the top or the bottom. Give them the cards and let them drop them again. And you're going to do the exact same process. Carefully pick up the force card, which is there, move those to one side. You can have the spectator help you out with this process, but once again, make sure that you've got a grasp of where the force card is so that they don't, do anything like push the cards together or anything like that. So you're going to keep doing this process until you're down to only a few cards. And that's because for the final part of the routine, you're going to equivocate to one of the force cards. Now, I say a few because it really is up to you how many cards you have in play at this point. Depends how comfortable you are equivocating with large numbers. I like to have no more than 6 cards ideally. So let's just go over this a little bit more, because right now we've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So in this case, I'd probably want to do it one more time. So you put some cards face up, some cards face down, have them do the little card drop, and at this point, you don't want the audience to know exactly how many face down cards there are. So basically handle them in a way that you keep the face down cards in a bit of a pile. That's because in a moment we're going to have a discrepancy where there's going to be an extra face down card appear, and if they've had a chance to visually count them, then that's going to be a little bit suspicious. So now, in this case, we have 5 cards, one of which is the double, the force card. You want to arrange it so that that card is on the bottom of the spread. Normally that's going to be quite straightforward. You're going to be able to do that when you separate and rearrange the cards. But if you haven't spotted it, then just pick up all the cards in a pile and just casually go through them one by one until you see the force card, and then put that on the bottom of the pile. Now we are down to the final part of the trick, the equivoque process. But first, we're going to separate this card, or these cards, so that we have 2 face down duplicates. So you're going to need to first catch a break between the 2 duplicate cards. And I normally just do this by grabbing the cards at the back and just riffling down one card. You might be able to do this with your pinky or some other way, but for me, I want to make sure that I get this exactly right. So I just riffle off one card like that and then do a slight twisting action, not that dramatic, but just a very small twist, and that twist basically dislodges that card so it is completely separate. You're now going to half pass this bottom card so it's face down with the rest of the cards. Now this is going to be the easiest half pass in the world because this whole process has been very chaotic and messy that it's really easy for you to just grab this break and then just almost throw the cards down on the table, and it very much fits in with the chaotic movement. If you were just doing a normal routine, which was quite neat, and then you got to a point where you wanted to do a half pass and you did this action, it would look very strange. But because the whole thing is very haphazard and you're grabbing the cards like this, and then you're going, all right, that's a few, we'll just use these, you'll be able to do the half pass very easily. But just to go over that mechanic, for those of you who don't do any kind of half pass, and in fact this is going to be like a very, I don't want to say a lazy half pass, but not a very technical one. So you're going to catch a break, or more accurately, just split those cards apart. And then in the action of coming forward, you're basically going to pull this card down like this with those fingers and drop it like that. So it's simply going to be that action. So I pry that card, and then as I move my hands forward, I'm doing that action. And the larger motion really covers the smaller motion here. I mean, this is just it is so straightforward of just doing that. If you know Lee Asher's Asher's Twist routine, you can also use the move he does to do the Asher's Twist to turn over that bottom card. Either way, you are now going to end up with these cards on the table in a bit of a pile, and as you spread them out into a little row, you're casually going to rearrange it so that your force cards have one card between them. Now we're going to do a very simple and clean and effective equivoque, and what's great about this is you have 2 force cards, so it gives you twice the chances to have a really nice direct clean hit. I'll leave the cards face up for explanation purposes. So firstly, you're going to number the cards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now you can do this way, or you can do it that way, or you can have the spectator choose which way they number the cards. That's normally how I do it when I'm performing equivoque, but at this point it doesn't really matter, but you're going to clearly establish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, or the other way. Now in this case, we're doing it this way, so it's 1 and 3 are where the force cards are. You're now going to ask the spectator to name odds and evens. When you're doing the equivoque though, you want to communicate to them that they're going to make a series of quick, rapid-fire choices. When you say quick, rapid-fire choices, it encourages them to not think about their choice and make it quickly. And what's good about that is that in the context of an equivoque routine, where you're going to basically twist their choice to suit your own means, if they're making the choices quickly, they're not thinking about what that choice signifies. If you go, you're going to name odds or evens, please choose one, and you give them time to really think about it, they might think odds. Odds are the ones I want to keep if they're thinking ahead. So I think it works really well in equivoque routines to have the presentation involve a bit of speed and a bit of quick fire decision making. So now you say to the spectator, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Really quick, without thinking, odds or evens. If they say evens, just go 2, 4, 6, and throw them out. And it's very much an attitude-based thing. I don't say, I'm now going to eliminate the cards. Sometimes I don't even point to the numbers, I just grab the cards and get rid of them. But just do it in a very confident way, like if they say evens, that means that you're eliminating evens. If they say odds, I'll go 1, 3, 5. And I'll just push those cards lightly towards the end of the close-up mat, and then I'll just get rid of these cards. So you see what you're doing here is that you're shifting the focus to where you want it to be based on what they say. And it basically means that either option, whether they name odds or evens, feels like you did exactly what they wanted. So really quick, if they say odds, 1, 3, 5. And if they say evens, 2, 4, 6. So now in this case, we're down to 3 cards, and you've got the fairest equivoque situation you can imagine. I'm sure you can think of a few different ways of ending this, but I normally ask the spectator to point to a card. If they point to the card that isn't a force card, I'll get rid of it. If they point to one of the force cards, there's a couple of ways you can deal with it, but I'll normally do something like this. Let's say they point to one of these. I go, this card right here, this is a big moment. Are you sure this is the card that you want? Now they've already made their choice, but you haven't told them what that choice means. They might have thought that is the card they're going to eliminate, but now you're clarifying what that choice means. So they have an option to say, yes, I'm happy, or no, I'm not. I always find that in the vast, vast majority of times, they will stick with that choice. Even though you've told them they're going to keep it, maybe they thought they were going to get rid of it, it doesn't matter. The point is that you right now are explaining to them what is about to happen, and you are checking with them that they are happy with that outcome. And that basically eliminates that you could be using a force, even though you are. You can also start picking up the cards that you're going to get rid of and go, are you sure? Are you happy with this card? And you're sort of more implying it by holding these closer to the pile, and then they'll know that you're about to get rid of them. Another way that you can deal with this is when they point to that card, you can say, all right, big decision right now. Do you want to keep this card? Is this the card that you want? Or do you want to get rid of it? And if you phrase it in a way where you're putting more emphasis on the first part about them keeping the card, they're more likely to go with that option. And if they do, you've got a really fair situation where you're down to the 1 card. And if they don't, if they say that they want to get rid of it, then you can simply get rid of it and now move on to plan B. More options of things that can happen is they've got rid of this card, and then simply you can get them to point to a card and you can ask them, is this the card you want to keep, or is this the final card you want to get rid of? Either way, when you've got two duplicates, the force is pretty easy. Or you might have a situation where you've got rid of one of these and you're down to 2 cards. I do honestly jazz with this and change it up a bit each time, but if you don't have the sticky card for this bit, then you can mix them up and get the spectator to hand you one. If they hand you the force card, you don't need to look at it because you know by the markings. You can just go, this is the big moment, this is the card, are you happy with it? If they say no, then you can get them to mix it up again and do something different. But yeah, basically they can hand you one, and if they hand you the card that isn't the force card, you will just quickly get rid of it. Other ways you can deal with this situation is you can get them to quickly pick up a card, and as they reach for the card, if it's the force card, you can just quickly pick up the other one and throw it away. Or if it isn't the force card, you can finish your sentence and say, and throw it away. If they're going for this one, you go pick up a card and throw it away. Now this might not seem like a very subtle equivoque moment, but bear in mind, from the audience member's perspective, you don't know what the cards are, and they don't know what the cards are either. In a lot of equivoque routines, you know what each object is, so it's a bit more suspicious when you're directing what their actions are, but in this case, you don't know what they are. I say most of the time though, when I'm in this situation and you've got 3 cards, it's so straightforward, because if they point to that one, you get rid of it, and if they point to a force card, you put a lot of emphasis on it, and that's normally the one they stick with. Let's go over a couple more equivoque scenarios. You don't want to have more than 7 cards at this point because you want to eliminate all the cards but 3. If you have 7, you'll need to make sure that the force cards are in positions 2 and 4, because that way, when they say odds or evens, you can eliminate so that you only have 3 left. Now, if you've got 6 cards, that's always going to happen whether they're in the odd positions or the even positions, but you always want to make sure that you eliminate down to 3 left. So no more than 7 cards ideally, and that keeps the forcing procedure nice and easy. Bear in mind that this force card has sticky marks on it, and although they are technically visible, I've never had anybody notice this. You don't want to give them this card to hold if it is the sticky card, but if you've eliminated that one, then you're ending basically totally clean. Another thing that I would recommend is, as you're eliminating the face-up cards, when you get down to your equivoque procedure and you've got a few cards, pick up the face-up pile and move it somewhere else so that you can turn it face down. The reason for that is that you want to put these cards face down and get rid of them, because at one point you're going to eliminate one of the duplicate cards and you don't want to show that face up when you're putting it on the face up pile. When you are down to 2 force cards and the indifferent card and they choose one of the force cards, you can use the indifferent card to scoop up the other force card, and then you can turn it over face up casually as you get rid of it, because this card is going to block the other force card. So that's just a nice little subtle thing if you want, in a very casual manner. One last thing that I nearly forgot to mention is that if you are down to only a couple of face down cards, like 4, and they've seen how many cards there are, one of the things you can do is just gather them all up, including the face up cards from the last bit, into a neat little pile. You can then go through them like this, getting rid of the face up cards and putting the face down cards to the bottom. And what that's going to do is a couple of things. Firstly, it's a nice way for you to locate the dotted card and get it to the bottom, but also it's giving enough time misdirection so that they won't remember whether there was 4 or whether there was 5 face down cards left. So just by gathering them all in a little bit of a pile and then arranging them, going through them one by one and getting rid of the face up cards, you'll find that it just helps them forget how many face down cards were there. And if by chance you have a situation where you only have a couple of face down cards and it's very clear, I'll say that's not quite enough for this last bit. Grab a few more of the face up cards, maybe 3 or 4, just a little clump, and chuck them face down on the table. And it's just a way that you can get around that, but I've never had this happen where you've only got a couple cards. Normally there's always at least 4.